there'll be women like me to keep them in their place. Remember, I'll be back.
Oh! And we'll be back, too. We'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. I just asked the audience during the break, how many journalists do we have in the audience? And two people said they're journalists, or journalism students, right? Good. And I said, so at least we do know that we have two liberals in the crowd. And what did you ask me? Well, how come I'm not a journalist?
Yeah, you wrote a book. You have a
I wrote a book. Yeah, but I'm interested in truth. Plus, let me tell you this. I laugh. You ever seen journalists smile? I look for the good things in life. I want people to be happy. Journalists, got to find things that are wrong. You know, you go to your nearest journalism school. Let me conduct a test. Why are you studying journalism? Tell me that. Yeah, see?
I'm a newspaper. I want to be a newspaper reporter.
But why do you want to be a newspaper reporter? You want to change the world, right? You want to make the world a better place.
I should clarify something. I'm a sports reporter.
Oh, well. A sports reporter. That's what happens, folks, when you don't screen the audience. Can I tell you something? No, I didn't mean that we wouldn't let him in, but I wouldn't have wasted time asking him about journalism. Let me tell you about journalism real quickly. You know, they found, this is funny, they have a suspect in the bombing of the World Trade Center. Here's how they found the suspect. The guy went to rent a van in Jersey City, New Jersey that he's going to transport the bomb in. He rented it in his real name. He then realized his error, so he goes back and he wants to destroy the rental records. He goes back with his rental slip. They say, where's the van? Well, it was stolen, he says. He went back with bomb residue on his hands. He was a walking clue. He was saying, here, take me. Now, the interesting thing about this is that's funny, but the interesting thing about this is, if you watch since the explosion, you've had the police commissioner in New York, Ray Kelly, who's a great guy, and you've had Jim Fox, the New York FBI guy, answering questions from the media. You got any clues? No, we don't have anything. You been down to the bomb site yet? Well, we can't even get down there. There's no signature on the bomb? No, we have got nothing. We may not have anything for 2 months. There are absolutely no leads. There are no clues. We are totally stumped. And then out of the blue, they have an arrest. You know why they have an arrest? Is because they didn't tell the press what they did know. They kept the press in the dark about this. And this is not... I can just see it now. The press finds out who this suspect is, and somebody, Diane Sawyer, Mike Wallace, Sam Donaldson, heads over to this guy. Hey, look, I'll get you a chartered flight back to the Middle East if you just give me an exclusive interview. Tell me why you did it, who you wanted to kill, and all that. I'll make sure you get out of the country. This is why, I'm using that, of course, as an exaggeration. This is why you don't tell the press where your targets are in war. I want to know where you're going to bomb. Why do you want to know that? You want to tell the enemy? They have a right to know. They're humans too. It's a great thing, I think, folks, to point out that this was all done without the media's knowledge. Let's see, how much time we have? Well, let me take a break. We'll come back. I'm going to try to get at least one more viewer video in when we come back. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. All right, look at that fireplace, folks. You see that fireplace? Would you buy that? Would you actually buy that? Now, I pointed this out during the break. This your liberal fireplace. You go out and spend big money for this, and you get that. And some guy said, hey, Rush, it's good. It's using fewer BTUs. Everyone went, yeah, great idea. But no. That's why you're still in college, sir, and I'm still the host. That VCR that's powering that fireplace is using just as many BTUs now on those cheap old little flames as when the flames were roaringly huge. It's an illusion. And let's go get a fireplace, Mabel, and put it in our TV. We'll save big money. Not with the Clinton administration, ladies and gentlemen. All right, viewer video. This is a sort of a barbershop quartet. Take a look.
Oh, crappy days are here again. For it's tax and spend, I fear again. 4 more years to shed a tear again. Crappy days are here. Unhappy days, it's clear. Crappy days are here again.
Sign them up. Sign them up. How much time left in this work of art tonight? Well, let's go grab a quick phone call. Let's go to the fake phone. Phone's not hooked up to anything. Cincinnati, Ohio. John, hi. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, Rush. How are you doing?
I'm super. Couldn't be better.
Oh, hey, aside from your cold, right?
Pardon me?
Aside from your cold, right?
No, but it's getting better. The audience has made me feel a lot better.
Good. Quick question. Obviously, your career in radio and your career in TV has taken off just incredibly.
Skyrocketing.
Yeah, obviously. I got a question. What's after that? What are you going to do? How can you help us ditto heads get into Congress and conquer these guys?
What's next for me?
Yeah.
Time off.
Time off?
Time off.
Hey, we're counting on you, bud, to help us through this mess.
No. I'm probably, I don't know, Rush the movie. And you know what, hey, hold it. Let me tell you something very quickly, folks. How about this? If Clinton's going to keep doing these little Saturday morning kid shows, I'm going to do a Saturday morning cartoon and tell the truth about the history of this country so they'll know it from somewhere. That's what's next.
Services provided and promotional fees paid by the following.
And for the Rush Limbaugh radio program, weekdays from 11 to 2 on Talk Radio WNFL 1440 and on News Radio 1490 WOSH.
Is that what it is? You know, I went back to the control room to get mic'd up for the show tonight. I always go back there and pep them up back there. Go back to the room and give them pep talk. It's kind of like the pregame pep talk in the locker room. And they say, Rush, wait till you just make sure you watch the slide at the beginning of the show. Just make sure you watch the day 48. That is what I have been in eager... From where? Hey, thank you. Now, hey, hold it a second. We had a complaint. You know, last week we had all college kids in here, college students. And so today we got a complaint letter from where does this woman live? It was a phone call, a complaint phone call. From where? Do you remember where? Probably someplace, a small town in California. A woman called in and said, don't ever bring those college kids back. They were too loud. That's what the volume control was for. And now you people out here are louder than the college kids were. There was also another complaint leveled by this woman, and she may have a point on this one. She said that all the applause, while appreciated, took up way too much programming time from me. Wise, they didn't applaud then. So let's get started. President Bush had an interesting idea to reduce the federal deficit. He announced it during his acceptance speech in Houston at the Republican National Convention. It was met with a lot of laughter, disrespect. We'll play what he said tonight and then compare it to this, the latest mode of deficit reduction to sweep our country, the bake sale deficit reduction technique. Oh, this is going to be so much fun tonight. More fun than a human being should be allowed to have. And do you remember when this show first started, last September? If you do, you go to TV Guide that week, September 14th, and go to the description of this show. The conservative commentator will do movie reviews, and never done a movie review in my life. Tonight, though, we're going to make TV Guide accurate. We're going to partially review a movie, Falling Down with Michael Douglas. The reason why is that you have been compared to him in this movie. I am blamed for creating you in this guy's image. In behavioral terms, it's a real insult to you folks. I mean, I'm used to this. I can handle it. But when they start insulting you, that's when my dander gets... That was really lame. And then, of course, here's our fourth monitor. I don't even know what's in it tonight because I know we're not going to get there. Now, you know what I wanted to do on tonight's show? I wanted to put together this side-by-side, we call it in the business split screen, comparison of the Reverend Jackson to Mahatma Gandhi. Because I thought, what was it, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, the Reverend Jackson announced a hunger strike in solidarity with the Haitian refugees who were not being allowed here because of the Clinton administration policy. And I saw him on television yesterday, and this is the best damn hunger strike I've ever seen. We ought to export this hunger strike to Somalia and a number of other places. I said, whoa, I got to find out how this hunger strike works. So I called him here and I said, well, I want to get some footage of Mahatma Gandhi. I want to get Jesse Jackson, and we'll show the difference in a real hunger strike and whatever the Reverend Jackson's doing. And they said, well, we can't. He's canceled his hunger strike. No, I didn't hear that. So they said, no, we've got it on tape. Our man in Washington interviewed him last week and asked him about it. Now, listen to this. Listen, here's the clip of the Reverend Jackson, his hunger strike.
We ended it last week, but we have simply, in a chain, kept it going. Other ministers and other leaders around the country continuing the hunger strike, identifying with the people at Guantanamo until they are relieved.
So what we have here, folks, we have Fast Across America. You remember that? It's like hands. Here's the way it works. You go on a fast, and when you get hungry, you call somebody else, say, hey, you got to take over this hunger for me because I'm going to eat now. And you keep passing this along, and so you've got this circle of friends of yours, and nobody ever gets hungry, but you're on a hunger strike. And that's what the Reverend Jackson's doing, and we thought that you'd like to know. So we've got a great show coming up. Don't leave us. You be right where we come back, and you'll see the rest of it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, and welcome back to Rush Limbaugh, the television show. All right, this business of reducing the federal deficit. My friends, this is a tough thing for me to do because I've come up with a nickname for myself, Mr. Cold Shower. I'm just like a shower head, walking into your bathroom, and immediately out pours for me freezing cold water. I strip away the shower curtain of reality, of fantasy, to expose the reality of things going on. Now, we around the country are engaged in all kinds of activity now designed to reduce our federal deficit. We've got grade schoolers doing bake sales, raising $1.30 here, $130 there, $250 here. And then last week, the chairman of Eskimo Pie, we happen to have a box here, chairman of Eskimo Pie announced that for every box of these sold during the next month, I think through April 4th, a nickel for each box will be donated to the federal deficit. BD. He expects to raise between $50,000 and $75,000 toward the reduction of our federal deficit. Third graders are baking cookies and cakes to reduce the deficit. They're sending the money in, and Washington's keeping it. It's phony. It is based only on feelings. In terms of substance, it's not going to matter, and it's not the reason we have a deficit. That's what I really don't like about it. Two things I don't like. It doesn't deal with the cause of the problem, and it makes people think that they're doing something substantive when they're not. And thereby, we condition people to solve problems in their minds that haven't been solved at all. We are headed for big trouble if this becomes the national attitude about things, like going out and mowing your yard and thinking, I'd like to mow the yard, and because I think I want to mow it, I'm a good person. The hell with it, I'm not going to mow it. And the grass is 3 feet high, and we think we've cut the grass. That's what this is, where we're headed. Now, the president proposed a deficit reduction idea last summer down in Houston, and here is his suggestion from his speech.
After all these years, Congress has become pretty creative at finding ways to waste your money. So we need to be just as creative at finding ways to stop them. And I have a brand new idea. Taxpayers should be given the right to check a box on their tax returns so that up to 10% of their payments can go for one purpose alone, to reduce the national debt.
Now that got big applause down there. It's a good idea if you're going to do this, because it takes the money from taxpayers that they're already spending by virtue of their taxation and says, I want 10% of my total tax bill to go towards deficit reduction. And the incumbent thing that went along with it, Congress had to reduce spending by the total amount of taxpayer contributions. And that gets to the problem with this deficit, spending. Well, you know how it was greeted. I went and searched. And I found a story, a statement, in fact, that was put out of Little Rock in August, home of the Clinton campaign, folks. That's right. Now, wait. 2 of the signatories are now members of the President's Council of Economic Advisors. One of them is Laura DeAndrea Tyson, and the other one is Alan Blinder. And I want to read to you excerpts from their response to what the President said. First up is this. We realize that this is the silly season, they said. But the budgetary sleight of hand in President Bush's acceptance speech seems recklessly irresponsible nonetheless. By dangling the prospect of more, presumably large, tax cuts in front of the American people, the President panders to the worst sort of wishful thinking. Now, my friends, these are the same people who think these bake sales are marvelous creations of American ingenuity. These are the same people calling these bake sales and this idiocy from Eskimo pies patriotic. The Bush plan would have worked. He wasn't talking about major tax cuts. It was the Clinton camp that was making that lie. And these people put out this response opposing this while supporting this idiotic bake sale mentality. Now, there's one more paragraph in this statement that I want you to read along with me. The novel tax return checkoff system that President Bush proposes to use to reduce the deficit is a cynical gimmick. If spending is not reduced, dedicating funds to deficit reduction is pure subterfuge. So the idea is meaningful only to the extent that spending is cut. But even if every taxpayer asked that the full 10% of tax payments be translated into lower spending, and if all these wishes were granted, the budget would be cut by only about $50 billion. Well, okay, let's compare how much deficit reduction we're going to get with bake sale deficit reduction. If these guys, now wait a minute. If these fraudulent, phony baloney, plastic banana, good time rock and rollers don't like, I like $50 billion of deficit reduction. We're not going to get it from them. If we're going to get any deficit reduction at all from these people, it's going to be a mistake. We're not going to get it. Now, we have prepared a chart, ladies and gentlemen. Can we put that chart up? We're going to show you piece by piece. Bake sale deficit reduction. Now, there's a fund, ladies and gentlemen. When you send in $1.50 or whatever, if you want to reduce the deficit, you send it into Bill Clinton and he keeps it. It actually goes to a fund called the Bureau of Public Debt, and that's also where bake sale receipts go. Now, the average collection every year is $1.5 million. That's what they get. Now, the national debt is $4.2 trillion. Now, I frankly don't think that we're going to get $1.5 million every year with bake sales, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt. We're nice people. Let's assume that we do. Put that chart back up there. We got 4.2 trill. We got $1.5 million every year from bake sales. How many years will it take us to reduce the debt? 2.8 million years. 2.8 million years using the bake sale deficit reduction method. Not to mention the fact, folks, that we may not even be around as a species that long because Al Gore says the automobile is the worst threat we have. We got styrofoam. We may not last. So, I mean, 2.8 million years, hell, let's spend the money and whoop it up. The hell with sending it in. It's actually ridiculous. Now, I got a letter from a woman who says that there's something really hideous about this business with the third graders. I want to read portions of her letter to you. This is profound stuff. The real point here is what gives any teacher the right to speak for 30 little third graders who can have no concept of what a federal deficit even is. These kids can't add or subtract beyond 4 digits. They have no idea what political gestures are or that they've been manipulated. She goes on to say, this is not education, this is indoctrination. And the worst problem, what I told to you earlier, they think they're solving a problem when they haven't solved a thing. They've grown to think they really, and they feel good about themselves. Wow, I did something that matters. And they haven't. But they don't know that. They're being manipulated. And it's a sad thing. I know it's funny, and it's only funny because we're good, and we are funny people. But serious thing, too. We'll be back with more. We got a movie review coming up after this. Don't go away. Oh, you know, somebody asked me during the break, hey, Rush, did you guys buy those Eskimo pies? We did. we unwittingly have sent a nickel into deficit reduction from this show. All right, folks, the movie is Falling Down. It stars Michael Douglas. I've not seen it, but I'm going to review it anyway. You might say, well, how can you do that? Well, that's what they do to me, folks. The critics all review my show or my book and don't read it or listen to it or watch this. So I thought I'd try it. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because Karen James, who reviews movies in the New York Times, has really scathed us by saying that this movie is custom made for the rabidly conservative Rush Limbaugh crowd that sees social blight as proof that America is lost in a liberal wilderness. This is part of the review. So I wanted to get some clips, because I mean, somebody asked me today, what do you do about, how do you handle criticism? I can handle it myself. It hadn't hurt me. I mean, our numbers just keep going through the roof. But it bothers me when you're misunderstood. It really does. You are some of the finest people in this country. You are not the dregs of society. You're not a bunch of maniacs, and you're not holding people prisoner in Waco, Texas. That's not my audience. But these people that review these movies, they have this fear, this giant fear of conservatism that is just unfounded. And I've had nothing to do with this movie, and nobody in my audience had anything to do with this movie, and yet this woman writes a review and says this movie is all about Limbaugh and his fans and his listeners. So we're going to have to split this up, but let me close this segment. Let me play a segment of Michael Douglas in this movie. Now watch how cliched this is, and I don't think the acting is all that hot. I think it's very stilted. Watch this. The guy is an absolute maniac. I mean, nobody runs around. You're sitting here, right, because if you don't get the amount of money you got this year on your budgets, then you won't get as much next year, right? If you don't, nobody talks to people that way. Anyway, we've got to take a break. We have one more clip and then some other aspects of this review I want to share with you, just so you'll know what they think of you in the Hollywood elitist community. Back in a minute. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so Michael Douglas has just finished reading out this construction worker, but he's still not said. Here's what happens next. Now, I want to see how many of you recognize yourselves here. I want to see how many of you feel like have ever felt like doing this, have wanted to go, because what the reviewer of this movie is saying is this is what you people want to do, that this is what you're motivated to do, it's what you might do if we don't keep a check on you. Watch this.
I'll give you something to fix.
Now keep a sharp. You walk around with your bazooka every day, don't you?
Hey, Charlie! Come on, please, man!
Little kid with... Right. Now, after doing this, the guy goes and does the same thing to a McDonald's, or it's called a whammy burger place in this movie. By the way, you know, I think I ought to put a Burger King inside the White House grounds for Clinton's jogging track. And the slogan would be, billions and billions of Whoppers told here. Let me share with you, here's some more of the review from the New York Times. Don't blame me, I'm the victim. There is an audience for this guy's opinion, which is the attitude Rush Limbaugh promotes on his radio show and in his bestseller, The Way Things Ought to Be. Just as Mr. Limbaugh's book suggests that the homeless bear some blame for their condition, I hadn't done anything to cause his homelessness, he complains of a man living in a shelter, so does the Michael Douglas character rail against a vagrant and snarls at him to get a job. In the first place, there's nothing inaccurate about that. Many of the homeless are there because they've chosen to be. But you can't say that here. That's bigotry or sexist or hateful or whatever. The bottom line is, folks, is that I don't know if she has seen this show, this reviewer, or seriously listened to my radio show or read my book. Because as you people know, and as those of you in this audience who watch every day and listen every day, my show features common sense, it features truth, and it features love. Now, one thing it doesn't feature is activism. I never encourage people to take any kind of action. I don't promote any kind of behavior. I do not sanction, promote, nor do I encourage violence. Quite the contrary. And I think that what we need is a little bit more of the raspberry effect. That's when you don't know what the show is, somebody tells you about it, and you write a scathing review, then you actually listen to it or watch it, find out you're dead wrong, and you write a review saying, sorry, I was wrong. This woman needs to watch this show. I love you people. Don't buy into any of this. You're fine. We will see you.